Psalm 5 is a morning psalm, kind of like Psalm 3. It's something that's good to read in the morning, something to focus on in the morning, something to read, sing, and pray to start a difficult day. David had a lot of difficult days, and he wrote this psalm on one of those very difficult days, and he knew the right way to start the day, and that was to talk to God. And I don't think a lot of times we realize we have these crazy days. And the funny thing is, for me, if I've got a crazy day ahead of me, I know that when I'm tired or hungry or sick, that things are going to be harder. And so one of the things I know I can do to prepare for a crazy day is make sure I get enough sleep the night before. And so I usually decide to discipline myself a little bit, make sure that I'm in bed by a certain time, and make sure that I have good quiet sleep. Sometimes if I have a really crazy day, like maybe I'm going to be driving for a long period of time or dealing with a lot of people, sometimes I'll even put in some earplugs and a little eye mask just so that I can have uninterrupted sleep as much as possible. With 5 kids, you know how that goes. But anyway, the thing about that that's so strange is that Jesus, the night before he was going to be crucified, he knew what was coming. He stayed up late to pray. And on so many different occasions when he knew he was going to have a stressful day, Jesus would get up before the sun even got up and start praying, which is pretty crazy. And you go, well, yeah, that's because he was God. He didn't have to sleep. No, actually, that's an incorrect assumption. Jesus was 100% human as well. So he got tired, he got weary, he got worn out just like we do. As a matter of fact, he was so tired one time that he was sleeping during a storm and he was getting doused with water. The disciples are all freaking out. We're going to die. It's a storm. There's water pouring into the boat. And there Jesus is on a pillow just snoozing. Totally on a soaked, squishy pillow. Asleep. Usually when we feel wetness, we wake up. But Jesus was so dead tired that he slept during that time. They had to wake him up. This is a good opportunity for us to take... A lot of times we don't know what to do, what to say, what to pray. A lot of times we want to spend time with God. We want to talk to God. We get up early. We stay up late, whatever it is. And we want to spend time with God, but we don't know where to go. A lot of people have that, well, I don't even know where to start. And sometimes we use that as an excuse to never start. I don't know where to start. That's like my son when I tell him to clean his room, and I come back 30 minutes later and he's playing. Well, I told you to clean your room. Well, I just didn't know where to start, so I started playing. Honestly, it doesn't matter where you start. If you start, you'll eventually finish as far as cleaning your room. God's Word is pretty complete. Even if you get into the book of Leviticus, which is very hard to follow sometimes because it's a lot of just information, you can still get some good stuff out of it. But there's a lot of good guides and stuff. At our church, we've got, laying out in the foyer, we have these little things, our daily word. And it's basically, we actually have 2. We have our daily bread, and then there's one, the word for you today. And both these are little devotionals that kind of, you just look at what day it is, they give you a verse and a little bit of an insight and encourage you to pray. And so, man, there's so many easy ways to get started, but the Psalms are a great place. And it's good to learn some of these Psalms, like this one in particular, a morning psalm for a crazy day. It's good to learn this because sometimes I don't know what to pray, but I can go right through what David's singing and praying to God, and I can make that my prayer to get things rolling. Especially if this is a great Monday prayer, honestly. A lot of time, he's speaking out against all of his enemies. Today, Jesus encouraged us to love our enemies, and we'll talk about that later and how those reconcile. But a lot of our modern day enemies are like our schedule, stress, deadlines, hard decisions. A load of work, a long shift, whatever. Those are things that are enemies that we face every day, and so whatever. We're going to see some seemingly mean phrases against those who reject God in this, and I don't want you guys to be worried about it to get tripped up. If you were here when we were doing our introduction to the Psalms, we talked about how Psalms, they pretty much convey the entire, the full spectrum of human emotion. And in that, also the emotion of anger, at least the emotional aspect of anger. We also looked at it as again, these are individuals crying out to God in honesty. It doesn't mean that we're supposed to build doctrine on that. That because David wanted to see his enemies tortured and killed and justice brought upon them, it doesn't mean that there's some doctrine that God is saying you need to desire the same thing. It's basically showing a man who is seeking after God, his honest thoughts and feelings towards God, and what he had to say about that. That's what Psalms really conveys. It's not meant to build doctrine on, but it is meant to encourage and help us to understand that we're understood, if that makes sense to you. And so, with that in mind, when we look at Psalms, we can apply the sections that speak about enemies to our common enemies. And with what we learn, in the New Testament, we realize that people aren't our enemy, like it says in Ephesians 6. People are not my problem. A lot of times I feel awkward around this person, or I have an issue with that person, and it's because of what was said, what was done, whatever. Really, the problem I have with that person and the problem they have with me is not us individually. It's those working behind the scenes. According to the Bible, it's principalities and powers of darkness. That's where I need to be directing my negative attention or my negative energy, I guess you could say, my anger, my frustration, not towards people. Jesus said we're supposed to be praying for our enemies and doing good to those who hurt us, and we're supposed to be battling evil by showing kindness to the people that are committing the evil things. And so in this, when we see enemies, we can apply this to those spiritual enemies that we all have. So, something to think about. The fact is, David, along with many other men and women of God, they took right and wrong seriously. They understood basic black and white understanding of sin. That, yeah, everybody struggles with it. Yeah, everybody is a sinner. Yes. But it doesn't mean that sin is okay. And it's a severe issue that the humans have, and it needs to be severely dealt with. And if it doesn't get dealt with on the cross through faith in Jesus, then it gets dealt with on the person between them and God, who has the right to judge them. So it's just something to think about. But again, it's God who has the right to be angry with sinners and with sin. We're the ones who are supposed to be blessing those who curse us, praying for those who hurt us, doing good to those who hate us. Like Jesus said when he said, love your enemies. Luke chapter 6. The problem is we don't love people enough to do this. We don't love people enough to actually do that. And we don't hate sin enough to actually get angry about it. David's getting angry about what's happening here, about this injustice, about this sin. Jesus got angry about sin. He used the proper context with anger, and that is being angry at sin and its destructive power, angry at evil, but not at the people who actually are partakers of it. Most of the time it's easier for us to be very angry with a person than it is to be angry with an entity or an idea. Because then at least it's directed, and I can say, CJ's the one that stepped on my foot, you freaking jerk, and I can flip out, when in reality, whether it was an accident or on purpose, again, the forces behind that act were to try to, ignite anger and wrath in me towards him and cause an issue, and then cause me to ignore the spiritual thing going on behind that. Even stepping on someone's foot, yeah, there's a spiritual thing going on. And so when I ignore that, that's when I fall prey to the enemy's scheme. Again, David got up early to talk to God, and this psalm we get some encouragement in our daily intimacy with God. And so there's actually some really cool, I guess you could say a format in a way that we could follow if we decided to in our intimacy time with God, that time every day that we spend with Him, whether it's all day or at least, the first part of the day. So, Psalm 5. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my groaning. Heed the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray. In the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. In the morning I will order my prayer to you and eagerly watch. For you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness. No evil dwells with you. The boastful shall not stand before your eyes. You hate all who do iniquity. You destroy those who speak falsehood. The Lord abhors the man of bloodshed and deceit. But as for me, by your abundant loving kindness I will enter your house. At your holy temple I will bow in reverence for you. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of my foes. Make your way straight before me. There is nothing reliable in what they say. Their inward part is destruction itself. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongue. Hold them guilty, O God. By their own devices let them fall. In the multitude of their transgressions thrust them out, for they are rebellious against you. But let all who take refuge in you be glad. Let them ever sing for joy, and may you shelter them, that those who love your name may exult in you. For it is you who blesses the righteous man, O Lord. You surround him with favor as with a shield. In those first 3 verses, we see basically the need to prepare to meet with God. This is something a lot of people don't think about. A lot of times I talk to people and they say, you know, I really wanted to spend some Devo time with God, but I kind of just prayed and it was kind of weird, and then I read the Bible and it was kind of weird. And a lot of times I ask, you know, well, what did you do to prepare? How did you get ready? Well, get ready? What do you mean? I need to shower and brush my teeth before I talk to God? In a way.
That's one way to do it.
In a way, you do. And I don't mean that you actually need to physically do those things, but we do need to prepare. There does need to be a certain attitude and an expectation that happens if we're going to be spending time with God. I mean, you don't call up your buddy if you have no expectations and if you're not going to get ready to hang out with him. I mean, that's just not how it rolls. Like, we prepare for everything that we plan on doing. Even if it's a small amount of preparation, even if it's, you know, you work at 7, you got up at 6:55, and, you know, you're brushing your teeth while you're driving to work or whatever. You still do some preparation. I've seen stuff like that, actually. I've actually been out on Blue Lakes and seen someone, you know, some lady driving like this, and there's, you know, the little mirrors down, and she's putting on her makeup, you know, and a dude texting while he's looking at his computer, you know, while he's driving. Just scary stuff like that. That's not very wise preparation.
Irresponsible.
And that will have some consequences. But we don't think about what it means to prepare to meet with God. I don't think we realize the gravity of the need. Like, think about your favorite band or musician. If I had a favorite band, it would probably be Blindside. And I went down to Salt Lake and with a few friends and my daughters and got to see them play live. First time in my life. So cool. After the show, Christian, the singer, is out on the street just chilling. And I walk up and I see him, and I'm not one to get starstruck. I'm not one to get like nervous and like, oh my gosh, I'm your biggest fan. But that totally happened to me. And I saw him and I was all, oh, you know. And I was like, he's so pretty, you know. And I went up and I didn't know what else to say, so I was all, have you eaten In-N-Out Burger yet? Because I knew, you know, being from out of country, you know, maybe he liked it, maybe he was looking for it. And he was just all, yeah, we were planning on when we go to California. I was like, did you know there's one in Salt Lake? And he was like, where? So I was like, yes, I love this guy even more. But if I knew that Christian Lindskog, the singer of Blindside, if he hit me up on Facebook before that show and said, hey, I noticed that you liked our band on Facebook. I was wondering if you want to hang out. I saw you're a youth pastor in Southern Idaho, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to get your thoughts on some songs. Dude, would I make plans? Heck yes, I would. Are you kidding me? I would probably beat my own children. No, I'm just kidding. No, I wouldn't really do that. But I would make plans. I would make serious plans. I would think about, this sounds so girly, but I would think about what I was going to wear. I would think about, man, I better have some gum on my mouth, you know? I would think about, dude, I need to pray. I need to talk to God, because if he wants some inspiration, I don't have it. God's the one that has it. So wow, Lord, show me what to share with him if he wants anything, you know, from me, you know. I would spend all this time preparing to meet with this guy who I consider to be a pretty cool guy, based solely on his songwriting and music performing skills. That's it. I don't know what he's like to hang out with, but I'm about to find out, and I'm prepared. Because I'm a big music freak. Same with, you know, a celebrity of some sort, you know, an actor, actress. If they called you up and were like, yeah, I want to hang out with you, you know, for this reason or whatever, want to get your thoughts, want to just get to know you, you would prepare in some way or another, at the very least, pray. Aiden's thinking about it. He's like, I don't think I'd prepare. He's like, I'd probably fart around him to see if he'd still hang out with me. Or think about it like this. Let's say there's the owner of a company that you either work for or would like to work for, sends you a text or an email saying, I want to meet with you about a possible job opportunity. Now, if you're interested, you're going to prepare for sure for that. Someone who you either want to work for or you want to work at a higher level for, man, you're going to dress nice. You're going to make sure your nose hairs are trimmed, ladies. You're going to make sure that every possible preparation can be made so that you make not only a good impression, but so that everything goes well. You want to be taken serious. You want to have humility and respect when you're talking to the person. So you're going to prep yourself. You're going to think about it. Maybe even when it comes to hanging out with your best friend. Maybe it's a friend that you haven't seen for a long time. I met up with a buddy of mine in Southern California, and I hadn't hung out with him for a few years. We used to be super tight. He was real instrumental in me coming to Christ. And even knowing that I was going to meet together with Dave Snow, is his name, I was like, what are we going to talk about? I was even thinking, well, we'll probably talk about youth ministry and family, and then we'll talk about how he looks the same and I'm really bald, and so I have to have some bald jokes ready, and then all this stuff's going through my mind, and I'm getting ready to meet with this guy. And this is like a really good friend of mine, and I'm not worried about what I'm dressing, what I'm wearing for him, because again, our friendship is different, but I am thinking about what our conversation is going to be like. I'm thinking about what I want to talk to him about, what I want to ask him about. These are all things that are happening while I'm driving down there, even minutes before we meet together at this Mexican restaurant. And the whole time that we're having this great conversation, someone stole our iPods and his skateboard. But anyway, that's Southern California for you. What about someone with some influence? What if you could arrange a meeting with the President of the United States, or your local congressman, or a judge on, the Supreme Court? And what if you had some requests or favors, or you needed some help? How would you prepare to meet with that person who actually has enough influence to help maybe change something? Who actually has enough influence to maybe do something about a problem? And I just brought up those scenarios because I want you to think about what it means to prepare to talk to God, to prepare to meet with God. He's obviously always there, and He can always hear your thoughts. So it's not like you're going to go get dressed and be like, okay, Lord, don't look, I'll be out in a minute, I'm going to wear something really nice, you're going to like it. I'm going to make your favorite food, but it's a surprise. It's not like we have to pretend that God doesn't know certain things. But there is some preparation that should be made. Preparation of our hearts, our minds, our attitudes, our perception. What about this? What if the love of your life, and maybe this person doesn't know that they're the love of your life. Someone that you've got this mad crush on, or you've always been in love with, or you'd love to, be married to. I remember there was a few female singers that I thought that I was going to marry someday just because their voices were so beautiful. She can sing to me every night if she wants. I'll let her. But if you actually thought you were going to meet with the love of your life, or someone you already know to be the love of your life, you'd make some certain preparations. If you want to romance and commune with that person, you're going to get ready. Verse 1 says, consider my groaning. He's basically, he's making it clear, I'm in pain. I'm admitting that I'm in pain to you, God. I need you. And the cool thing about David is that he's begging for an audience with God. He's begging for God to even hear him. He's begging, he's desiring, he's wanting for God to even hear what he has to say. So much so that he actually repeats it 3 times in 3 different ways. Give ear to my words, consider my groaning, heed the sound of my cry for help. He's saying pretty much the same thing. All 3 times. It's actually called a Hebrew parallelism. And the idea there is that I am, without being vainly repetitious, emphasizing what I really want. And he really wants for God to listen to him, to hear him, to answer him. Which is a pretty awesome attitude, Paul pleaded with the Lord 3 times, it says, concerning the issue that he had. It could be that he was implementing that Hebrew parallelism kind of in his prayer also, where He's saying the same thing, but he's restating it 3 different ways. Again, not to be vainly repetitious, but to actually show his sincere desire. And it's kind of like how we knock. Why do we knock 3 times? Knock, knock, knock. Why don't we just do this? We always do. You know? Why do we do that?
Because if you only knock once, they won't hear you.
Yeah, you knock once. What was that? A bird just flew into the door. You know? Someone hit their head on the wall. You know, what was it? There's a purpose behind the 3 knock. You know, and some of us do it. I love messing with my girls when I want their attention. I knock on their door. Who is it? I knock on the door. Hello? Knock on the door. I'll be out in a minute. Knock on the door. What? And I'm like, it's time for dinner. But I do it for real. It's so funny. It reminds me of my sister when she's a teenager, screaming. But the emphasis here is this persistence. God wants us to be persistent with Him. A lot of us guys don't realize this, and it's not a general. I mean, it's not a complete rule, but it is kind of a general thought. A lot of us don't realize that girls like persistence. Girls like it when a guy keeps asking them out, to an extent, if there's actually some interest. They don't like stalkers. Nobody likes stalkers when they say, please leave me alone, I'm going to call the police. And the guy goes, okay, you want me to be more persistent, I see. No, see, that's not what I'm talking about. Mike's the only guy I've known that actually got married that way. There's no other person on the planet who's getting married.
I said she was afraid for her life.
She's afraid. I'll marry you. But persistence, you know, where we don't, you know, you're not giving up the first try. Like, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? Yeah, maybe. Oh, well, I can tell you're not interested. Goodbye. You know. There's some interest involved in, you know, the next day, hey, you want to go get out? You want to go get some food sometime? You want to go out sometime? Eh, maybe. But that persistence is good. Again, obviously, if there's a no, I don't, please don't talk to me again. That's my boyfriend behind you with the brass knuckles. But that persistence is good, especially in the courting process. And God wants the same thing. He pursues us actively, constantly. He wants us to pursue Him. Part of that relationship with God means that I keep moving forward. I keep seeking, asking, and knocking. And He says, to you, I pray. Now, normally we read right past that and go, okay, obviously He's not saying, you know, help me, O Lord, because I'm, you know, this time I'm praying to you instead of Buddha. Or I happen to be speaking to you, God. It's not like He's oversimplifying. You know, it's the fact that it's actually really important. Because a lot of times, even believers in a singular God, even those of us of the monotheistic persuasion that believe there's only one true God, when we pray, many times we're not talking to Him. Many times when we pray, we're not talking to God. Sometimes we're just talking to hear ourselves think. Sometimes we want to hear the sound of our voice. Sometimes we're trying to impress someone we're praying with. But there's a lot of times that even Christians aren't praying to God. And it's kind of sad. David makes this distinction. To you, I pray. You know, again, it's not religious chanting or eloquent verbalization of thoughts and desires. It's not just, I want this, you know, to see if anything happens. But we're actually talking to Father, to Creator, to Daddy. And we've got to be intentional about that. We need to consciously and intentionally realize who we're talking to. Not only who we're talking to, but that He's listening. Mike?
Oh, this verse was kind of reminding me of, I think it's the end of John, where Thomas calls Jesus my Lord, my God.
My Lord, my God.
And I was talking to an LDS guy a long, long time ago, and I was asking him about that verse because he didn't believe that Jesus was God, you know. And I'm like, well, what about this where Thomas is, you know, calling Jesus my Lord and my God? And he's like, well, no, he's calling Jesus my Lord and then saying,
my God!
Oh my God!
Oh my
God!
You know? OMG!
It's Jesus. So it's like, it's David saying like, my King and my God. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Right. And obviously he's basically saying my king and my God. You are both.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not saying my king to any human because he is the king.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's all, my king, oh my God. You know.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's making this, you know, that basically calling God two different things. You
Yeah.
are my master, but you're also my creator. Yeah, and that's important. Again, he's making that distinction. I'm praying to you, the one who's my master, the one who's my creator. And that sometimes is one of the best preparations for prayer, is realizing who you're praying to. Like, as I was studying for this, I actually stopped and I prayed and I made a conscious effort to realize I'm talking to my creator, my God, my Savior. And honestly, like, just remembering that when I was praying, like, made it so much cooler. It actually enhanced my connection with God, I believe. And I think that David, again, showing the emotions of, you know, all the different parts of, you know, the human emotion, one of these is that realization and the blessing that comes with realizing that you're talking to God. And I've shared this before, but I still get, like, blown away by it and blessed. I had this really ditzy, like, blonde cheerleader friend. And I say blonde because just that it paints a whole picture. Nothing against any of you blondes. Well, a little bit, but no. I have 2 blonde daughters. Anyhow, she was actually a valedictorian, but she was one of those that just, you know, was really good at studying, really got her, you know, her grades taken care of. But in regular conversation was a little bit gullible and, you know, lots of fun to mess with. But anyhow, we were sitting in our Christian club at school. It was called Student Venture, and we were just talking, and, you know, hey, what blesses you? And she was just all, yeah. So the other day I was praying, and I realized I'm talking to God. I just started laughing out loud. I'm just like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And then it hit me, and I was like, actually, that's profound. As simple as it sounded, it was extremely profound. She had an epiphany, which caused me to have an epiphany that, whoa, the creator of the universe is listening when I talk to him. That changes things, guys, when we realize that. When we actually take the time to realize who we're talking to. And then in verse 3, he goes on, and he says, in the morning. Interesting. In the morning. This is how we know it's a morning psalm. In the morning. He started his day with talking to God. And I don't know if you guys understand the biblical concept of tithing, but it's not so much about money like we think it is. Tithing tithe means tenth. And in the context of it, it's talking about the first fruits, meaning the first fruits of your labor. You spend all this time in your field, you're going to give the first tenth of your increase, of your grain, of whatever it is that you have, your cattle or whatever, and you're offering that to God, realizing He's the one that gave it to you. Money is included with that, but a lot of times money, something that we feel like we've earned and doesn't have a lot of value in and of itself, is really difficult for us to let go of. But the idea behind a tithe is giving the first fruits to God. What about tithing your day? What about tithing your day? Obviously you realize all your stuff belongs to God. So why do you got to give Him 10%? It's the idea of dedicating. It's the idea that God gets the first. And the first meaning the foremost part of my life, the important part, all of it. He gets the foundation. And so when I'm tithing my day, I guess we could say, I'm starting out my day by talking to God. Now, do you have to spend, do your personal time with God at the beginning of the day? No, you don't have to. But do you really want to go through a day without starting it by talking to God? Do you really want to go through whatever could possibly happen in a day and not be prepared spiritually? I mean, you have that right if you want to. But if you knew there was a possibility of zombie apocalypse today, like a pretty good possibility, are you going to leave your house without your gun? Are you going to leave your house? Or are you going to take another 30 minutes and install that giant blade on the front of your van and stock it up with shotguns and guns and all the other things and maybe a machete just in case? I mean, obviously you're going to be prepared if you knew there was going to be a zombie apocalypse, and that's something that, in all honesty, is very rare to happen. But having a catastrophe in a day, like a zombie apocalypse, is pretty likely. In a given week, we have a couple to 3 catastrophes. Sometimes we have that many in an hour. And would you really want to start a day just doing your own thing? Listening to music, whatever, and not talk to God? I mean, that's just my question with that. But David said in the morning, you will hear my voice. Yeah?
Almost got hit by a truck coming out of my driveway this morning.
Today?
Yeah.
Almost got hit by a truck?
Yeah, up on the hill by the driveway.
Can I ask you a personal question? Did you start out this morning talking to God?
Yeah.
Yeah, are you glad you did?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because who knows, you could be like, good morning, Lord, and then you get hit by a truck, and then he's like, hey, what's up?
Especially the kind of work I do.
You can continue the conversation in person, maybe with some tea, I don't know.
Oh my goodness. I'm trying to steal drop on your toast.
Let me read you something interesting. A lot of us don't realize how crazy it is and how beneficial it is. Not just the act of getting up early and praying. Because if that's all it is, if it's just some religious thing, then yeah, whatever. But if it's actually, I want to sacrifice some sleep, some time, and I want the first part of my day, the absolute first part of my day, with morning breath and BO and everything, to be for God. I mean, just think about this. In Mark, right there in the first chapter of Mark, it says that Jesus, early in the morning while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went away to a secluded place and was praying there. He went away to a secluded place, meaning a place away from people. He got to a place where he would not be interrupted, or not likely be interrupted, before the sun even came up, before people would wake up. And that's when he went off to pray. He did this a lot. You're going to see that. Jesus got away to pray a lot. You're like, well, again, he's Jesus. He's perfect. Did everything right. Here's the thing. Jesus knew his dependence upon the Father. Do you know yours? And if Jesus lives inside of you, he's beckoning you to do the same thing. Come away with me. Get away from stuff. Talk to me. I know you're hurting. I know you're confused. I know you're excited. Whatever's going on. But you're distracted. Come away. Talk to me. Get together with me. Let's do this together. The famous 1800s missionary Hudson Taylor was a Chinese missionary, probably like partially responsible for where the gospel's at in China today. This guy was so busy, married with children, full-time missionary in China, crazy stuff going on all the time, tons of people talking to him, tons of work to do, all this stuff. And the guy found even what can happen with Christians in full-time ministry, he found that he had all this time to spend with people, but very little time to spend with God. And this guy was crazy enough to just decide, you know, instead of cutting out a couple Bible studies and saying no to a couple of people, he got up at 2 a.m. every morning to spend time with God. Because that was the only time when it was completely quiet, the kids were asleep, the people were gone, there was no, fuss and hustle and noise, and that was the best time for him to spend with God every day. That's crazy. But the dude was super legit and did so many things for God's kingdom, but it's all because he decided he had to make that time. And he says, David goes on in verse 3, "In the morning, O Lord, you will hear my voice. In the morning I will order my prayer to you." The word order really literally means prepare. And it's the same word used in the systematic sacrifices of the priesthood. Where there's, you took the animal and you killed it in just such a way, and then you took the piece of the animal and you laid them on the altar in just such a way, and then you burned this piece, and then you did this. It was this crazy, like, intricate, systematic work and job that the priests had all the time. They were very meticulous in how they prepared the animal and inspected the animal before they prepared it, and even how it was sacrificed and how, all that stuff. And even the cleanup afterwards was perfectly regimented in just such a way And David took that much care in his prayer to God that he actually is laying it out. Organizing his prayer to God. Isn't that crazy to think about? A lot of times we're so, hey God, bless my day, help me not get a ticket, see you tonight at Bible study, amen. You know. And that's sometimes like the best prayer we have on a Monday. But this guy actually organized his prayer. I want to talk to God about this, and I want to make sure I bring up this, and I want to ask him to show me what to do about this, and then I'm really thinking about these people at work, and this guy in my class, and this person that lives next to me that's been hurting. I want to know what's going on there and see if I could help. And really, even as he's organizing it, obviously God can hear all that, but when he comes before the Lord and you know, actually starts praying this stuff out, he doesn't forget anything. He doesn't lose track. He doesn't get distracted. And that's one of the biggest problems in prayer. And Lord, you're so awesome, and I love the Bible, and Bryan's head is so bald. And it makes me think about bowling. I love bowling. We should do a themed bowling night. It'd be really fun if we all dress up like Star Wars characters. Oh, I love Star Wars. It's going to be in 3D at the theater pretty soon. Oh my gosh, I got to call, you know. And the next thing you know, that's what happens with our prayer, right? And then it's like, hey, Lord. And he's like, hey. And then you're all, you know, and then you start walking away. And God's like, okay, see you later. Even someone like me that's super disorganized can actually organize my thoughts and prayers to God. Again, that same word is for prepare. It also got used once in a while in a military sense as a soldier presenting himself to a superior officer. Basically saying, you know, I'm ready for further orders. So this word was also used in the sense that you would be, you know, appearing before your superior officer, ready to take on whatever your next orders were. You're not going to show up in your boxers. What's up, Sarge? What's going on? You know? You'd get slapped across the head. And maybe asked to run like 70 laps around, you know, around the camp. But you're going to be in full uniform, ready for duty, so that whatever he tells you, after you say, reporting for duty, sir, whatever he tells you, you're ready to get at right away. What if you had that kind of attitude when you went into prayer? Ready for orders, God. I love you. You're my father. You're my daddy. What is on your agenda today? Instead of, here's what's going on today, God. Bless it all. Instead of, God, here's what I think's going on. What do you know is going on? And what do I need to do to prepare for it? What do you want me to do today? Show me. Could you imagine starting out a day like that? Like how much better that day could be? Yeah, tragedy still can strike. Pain can still be in your path. But your ability to handle it, your preparedness will be far greater. Because you know you're not rolling with it alone. And then he says, in the morning I will order my prayer to you and eagerly watch. I'm ordering my prayer to you. It's not like he's putting in an order for prayer. And Lord, I'd like to have 4 of those and 6 of those and a really pretty one of those. No, I will order my prayer before you. It's not, again, you know, I'm telling God what to do. I'm asking God what I should do. And eagerly watch. That's faith. That's praying with faith. I'm expecting that I'm talking to God and I expect for Him to speak back to me, to respond. And He will. Sometimes I'm not quiet enough and I don't sit still long enough to actually hear a response. Sometimes it takes God the whole process of the day to respond to me, and He actually speaks to me through the events of the day. But whatever the deal, God will respond. I need to expect that. But if I don't watch an expectation, again, I could come up to Mike and still, Mike, it's so good to see you. I was thinking about you the other day, and I really wanted to let you know this would be a cool idea, blah, 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 blah. And if I just, like right after that, just took off running, Mike, that's a great idea, Bryan. What are you doing? You know, again, maybe he got to hear my whole thought, but I didn't stop and wait to see what he would say. Or if while he's talking to me, that's a really good idea. Hold that thought. And I just took off, and then never came back. Again, if I was, if you're in a conversation, you're expecting a response. As a matter of fact, we get upset when someone doesn't respond. When you say something and then they're just all, hey, I'm talking to you. Did you hear what I said? Dude, why aren't you listening to me? We get upset because we expect a response. So why don't we expect God to respond? Verse 4. So obviously we see that David prepared himself. But also, you see in David this desire to please God. Verse 4. For you are not a God who takes pleasure in wickedness. No evil dwells with you. The boastful shall not stand before your eyes. So, you see here that God is not down with deception. That sin, wickedness, they have no place before Him. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't please Him. He's not pleased with wickedness. What is He pleased with? Just like we talked about, faith. Hebrews 11:6. It's impossible to please God without faith. Everybody wants God to be pleased. If there's any entity in the universe that you want pleased with you, it's God. But so often we think that He's pleased with our Bible study attendance. He's pleased with, how nice of a Bible we invested in. He's pleased with, how many people we told about Him. Or He's pleased with, the fact that we did get up and pray. But ultimately, we can't make God happy. We can't please God with any of our efforts without faith. Faith is what He's looking for. He wants us to trust Him. He wants us to look to Him for what we need in every way. And here, there's this crew of people that David's talking about. Here's this crew of people that totally, purposely rejects God, dishonors God, and dishonors His love. These are the people that, just like us, are worthy of this kind of punishment. Let me read you something in Revelation 21:8, just so you guys don't think that it's the Old Testament only where God gets pissed about sin. Revelation 21. And He who sits on the throne said, Behold, I am making all things new. And He said, Write, for these words are faithful and true. Then He said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give to the one who thirsts from the spring of life, from the spring of the water of life without cost. He who overcomes will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son. But for the cowardly and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and immoral persons and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, their part will be in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. That gives me chills. That's freaking scary. And that's exactly where every one of us is headed if we reject His love. If we reject His gift. If we reject His way out of His judgment. He says, my judgment's coming. You want out of the way? I can provide for you a shield, a protection. But if you don't accept it, then all of that wrath and fury and judgment that we deserve is coming on us forever. That's not unreasonable. Matter of fact, that's justice. Yes, John 3:16. For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. But God hates sin. And those who reject His grace are going to see none of it. Those who reject His grace and mercy are going to see none of it. Warren Wiersbe said something really interesting. He said, God's hatred of evil isn't emotional. It's judicial. It's not like God's feelings are hurt. Stop hurting each other. Why did you slap your brother? You're such a little turd. He's not emotionally involved with sin. God's not, oh, that offends me. It's so disgusting. I hate you guys. It's not emotional. It's judicial. A judge, a good, righteous, right-on judge, when he is encountering a murderer who's been found guilty, there is plenty of evidence to prove this person is a murderer, and God knows all evidence. And if that judge goes, yes, he's a murderer, and yes, he should be punished, but I'm feeling kind of nice today, you'd say that judge was jacked. And rightfully so. That'd be a whack judge. We don't want a judge that's going to just overlook murder. Who wants to live in a society like that? We all long for justice. Unless, of course, it's us. And when we're standing before the judge, we want, mercy.
Leniency.
Mercy, please. You have 700 parking tickets. Yes, but I just like parking wherever I want to. Please be understanding. I never killed anybody. That's not a righteous judge if he just goes, I guess so, it's just parking. It's just murder, no big deal. No, a good judge takes care of that. That's God's issue with sin. He deals with wickedness on a judicial level. And when we share with God, when we share His nature, His love in us, His righteousness. Oh, did you have your hand up? You wanted to say something? Or you just waving?
He was waving my arm, but I did have something to say.
Yeah.
Just on the idea that God's a judge, and a God that judges rightly is a God that loves completely.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have someone who's judging and doesn't have a certain anger towards something that is destructive, if you don't have someone who has really love.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. You look at a parent, and a parent that never disciplines their child, but says the reason for that is because they love their child so much, is not truly loving their child. If I don't discipline, if I don't give my son a spanking when he throws rocks at people, eventually he's going to get a spanking from a police officer in the form of a bullet or something,
Or handcuffs.
Yeah, or at the very least handcuffs. So because I love him and I don't want him to get a bullet in the brain, I'm going to give him a spanking so he knows that throwing rocks is not cool and it's not okay, because I love him. Mike?
I think, what he was saying about, and what you're saying about being a parent, even the fact that God will send some people to help is a testament to how much not only He loves the rest of everybody else who's going to heaven, but even the people who are going to hell He loves, because as a parent, one time Lex was stabbing Liam in the back with a pin, like one of them real fine tip pins with a little needle at the end,
Yow!
And he was just Liam still has little tattoos on his back from it, way bad. And I caught Lex doing that, and because I loved Liam and I wanted justice for Liam, I spanked Lex. But I also spanked Lex because I loved him.
You don't want, exactly. You don't want him learning to be a backstabber.
Yeah, so, even hell.
Or to give really bad tattoos.
Yeah.
Neither one of those sins you want as part of his life.
Yeah.
Understandable. So not only, did David prepare himself when he went to spend time with God, and not only did he have this desire to want to please God and hate what's wicked and hate what's evil, but he also decided, I want to submit to God. Here's the thing about prayer. I'm not praying because I have this Santa want list. And I've been a good boy, so I know you want to give me these things. No. We pray with the intention of not only making requests to God, not only praising God, but also expecting to submit to God in whatever He says and whatever His answer is. Even if His answer is no. And so we read on verse 7. But as for me, so he's kind of contrasting himself as a contrast to the wicked. By your abundant loving kindness, also translated mercy, I will enter your house. At your holy temple I will bow in reverence for you. O Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of my foes. Make your way straight before me. And so here we see, his desire to submit to God. And here you actually see, in these last few verses, you see three different requests that David makes to God. And the first one there in those first two verses is basically he's saying, I want some guidance. Help me to enter your house. At your temple I will bow in reverence. Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of my foes. Make your way straight before me. He's asking for some guidance. God, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I want to walk your path. I want to do what you want me to do. Show me how to do that, God. Show me how to stay true to you. And so that first request for guidance, I don't think we realize this, but the fact that we can even walk the right path was made available because of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. The fact that we can even do the right thing was made available to us. That ability to do the right thing was made available by Jesus' sacrifice, His death. And when I'm asking God to straighten my path, it's because I get off of the path a lot. I take all these stupid exits. And I get lost. And here's the thing about that, is that if I'm off track, I have to acknowledge that I'm off track in order to get back on track. There's a thing about guys that's funny, and it gets joked about all the time, how guys don't ever like to ask for directions. And when I was younger, I was like, that's so stupid. Why are guys so prideful? I don't have a problem asking for directions. And then I was at Walmart with my mom the other day. She's in town. Why is it funny that I go to Walmart with my mom? And so I'm at Walmart, and no, I didn't have to consult Google Maps. I know my way around Walmart okay. At least I thought. And we're looking for something. I think we were looking for gifts for my kids. It was before Christmas or whatever. And I'm thinking, oh, they move things around. I bet it's over here. And then, no, it's probably over here. And we walk back and forth about 2 times from the store, from one end to the other. And then my mom starts to go to an associate, ma'am? And I'm like, no, it's okay, Mom. We'll figure it out. We'll find it. And right then, the Lord was like, aha! You make fun of the guys that won't ask for directions when they're lost driving, but you won't ask directions even inside a Walmart. You know why? You know why I didn't want to ask for help? I was embarrassed to admit that I didn't know my way around Walmart. I was embarrassed to admit that I didn't know where the Hot Wheels cars were, or whatever we were looking for. I mean, that's the truth. I was embarrassed, and my pride would not allow me to say, can you tell me where the underwear are? You know, or whatever it was that we were looking for. I am never going to get back on track if I can't acknowledge the fact that I'm off track. Because when you ask for directions, you're admitting that you're lost. When you're asking for God's guidance, you have to admit that you have no clue where to go. And a lot of times, we don't like to admit that. We don't like to own up to that. We don't even like to think about that. That we could possibly be going the wrong way, making the wrong choices in life, talking during Bible study, whatever that sin is that we're struggling with. We don't want to admit that. Don't laugh, Jessica. You do it too. You can laugh. It's okay. So he asked for guidance. Verse 9. There is nothing reliable in what they say. Their inward part is destruction itself. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongue. Hold them guilty, O God. By their own devices let them fall. In the multitude of their transgressions thrust them out, for they are rebellious against you. So now he's not just asking for guidance, he's asking for justice. David's asking for justice. He knew that God would deal justice and that it wasn't David's job, even though David was a king. He knew that it was God's job to deal out justice. David prayed this, and then a little while later, there was a battle that took place. 2 Samuel 18. This is a battle where Absalom was killed. In that chapter, in 2 Samuel 18, verse 8, it says, check this out, listen to this. The forest devoured more people than the sword did in that battle.
Wow.
You're like, what? You mean like full-on Lord of the Rings style? Yes. The forest devoured more people than the sword did. God executed more judgment than the people, the guys flinging their swords at the enemy. God takes care of business. A lot of times we're out hacking at people with our swords. Die, sinner! Not so much we actually are killing people, but we're out there casting judgment on other people. Don't cuss around me! I'm not into your liberal ideas. And we cast all this judgment on people when it's not our job to do that. We can disagree. We don't have to condone. We can let people know our opinion. But it's not our job to be out there hacking. If there's wickedness, God's the one that deals with it, and that's what we need to pray. That He would save the lost and deal with evil. Let me read you something from Luke chapter 18, just so you see consistency in the New Testament with this idea of justice. Luke 18. Jesus said, "Hear what the unrighteous judge said. Now will not God bring about justice for His elect who cry to Him day and night? And will He delay long over them? I tell you that He will bring about justice for them quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will He find faith on the earth?" And basically, showing that Jesus is down with justice, and when He comes back, justice is going to be served. It's not a bad thing to be praying for that. And that little section where it says their throat's an open grave, that's quoted by Paul in Romans 3, as he's basically showing the whole world is guilty of sin. And then the last thing he requests, not only is he asking for guidance, asking for judgment and justice, he then prayed for blessing. Verse 11. "But let all who take refuge in you be glad. Let them ever sing for joy. And may you shelter them, that those who love your name may exult in you. For it is you who blesses the righteous man, O Lord. You surround him with favor as with a shield." So then he started to pray for blessing for people. He started actually praying. The cool thing is, David wasn't stoked to see the wicked burn in hell. He was stoked to see the righteous burn with passion for God. That's what he really wanted. His desire was to see those that love God to burn with passion and be blessed. He wasn't all stoked about, oh, and that guy's going to go to hell, and that guy, and I really pray, Lord, that my boss at McDonald's back in the day that was such a jerk to me, I pray that he burns in hell. And could I please see like a YouTube video of that for like 10 minutes just to have some satisfaction? No. David was not stoked about that. He was stoked about God blessing the righteous, the people that love Him. David started with requests for himself and he ended with blessing for others. That's a good format. Yeah, bring your requests to God. But let your prayers end in blessing for other people. The point tonight, guys, is that we need to spend time with God. And this Bible study is not a replacement for that. This is not your personal time with the Lord today. This is your time with the body. This is where we collectively, corporately hang out, seek God, pray, get in the Word. But you need to have alone time with Him. And if that's difficult for you or scary for you, then that's all the more reason why you need it. Should you really be afraid or uncomfortable with spending time with someone that you want to spend eternity with? Should you? No way. Yes, He's Creator, He's Judge, He's the Father. But He's also closer than a brother. And we can actually have an incredibly amazing, rad relationship with God. God's making the effort, but it needs to be reciprocated. We need to make the effort back. We need to actually get away to a secluded place and talk to Him and listen to Him and talk to Him and listen to Him. So I want to encourage you guys. And yeah, it's fine, turn on some worship music, but really get in some silence. And even if you can't get into some silence, you're already at work or you're already at a place and you realize you need some time with God, you'd be amazed how God can bring peace in those situations. Take advantage of the opportunity, which is often. Don't neglect that. You all take showers because after a while you don't want to smell yourself, and you don't want the rest of us to either. So why not stand in the flow of God's blessing at the beginning and middle of every day? Why not have a spiritual shower every single morning?